President Trump announced on Wednesday night that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of a peace agreement.
Now, almost 2 years ago on the dot, Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, igniting the war that has left more than 67,000 Palestinians killed and 2,000 Israelis killed. Hamas took around 250 Israeli hostages, and Israel says there are about 20 of them who are still alive, and there are around 25 bodies.
President Trump wrote in part on Truth Social, quote, "This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America, and we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who worked with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen."
Hamas also responded positively to the news, saying in a statement, quote, "We call on President Trump, the guarantor countries of the agreement, and all Arab, Islamic, and international parties to compel the occupation government to fully implement the terms of the agreement and not allow it to evade or delay the implementation of what has been agreed upon." Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also applauded the deal, saying it was, quote, "a great day for Israel." Other aspects of the conflict, like the future governance of Gaza and disarming Hamas, still need to be negotiated.
On Wednesday, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner arrived in Egypt on behalf of the U.S. to help negotiate the deal. In addition to Hamas and Israel, representatives from the mediators, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey, were also there. While speaking to a roundtable on the radical group Antifa, which we discussed earlier in the show, Secretary of State Marco Rubio passed Trump a note and whispered something in his ear. It turns out that that was when Trump found out they were very close to a peace deal. Here's what Trump had to say after the fact.
We have a great team over there, great negotiators, and there are unfortunately great negotiators on the other side also. But it's something I think that will happen, got a good chance of happening. I may go there sometime toward the end of the week, maybe on Sunday, actually, and we'll see, but there's a very good chance.
Journalist Mehdi Hassan reacted to the news on X, writing, quote, "I love that we live in a world where we're all supposed to now praise Trump for his peacemaking and ignore the fact that at least 20,000 Palestinians have been killed on his watch with bombs and bullets and rhetorical support that he supplied to Israel. That's all erased now."
But editor-in-chief of the Dispatch, Jonah Goldberg, wrote, I don't think I need to persuade anyone. I'm not a Trump fan. Side note, he's definitely not a Trump fan. But he deserves credit and praise for this phase of the deal if the reporting is accurate, and he will deserve more credit and more praise if the larger plan comes to fruition. This is a good example of how claiming everything Trump does is bad is stupid, just as claiming that everything Trump does is good is stupid. Yes, indeed, I agree. This is great news. Now, obviously, we've had false hope in the past about this war coming to a close when we've had ceasefires that then break down. I hope this is the one that sticks. It sounds like there's a good chance of that happening. Hamas has agreed. Israel has agreed. This will mean the release of the remaining hostages, which is just wonderful. They've been held for 2 years in this awful state. Their families have had to, wait for 2 years, but with trying not to give up hope, hoping against hope that this day would come. So great news. Now, the difficulty is always for working out what the governance of Gaza is going to be, because it's not going to be Hamas, is the Israel position. So things are not easy, but getting Israel and Hamas to agree to a peace is good. And yes, Mehdi is right that thousands and thousands of Palestinians have died, and that's awful. I don't put the moral blame for that on President Trump. It's the Israeli government conducted this counteroffensive in response to a terrorist attack. I would not have given it as much support as the U.S. government did. That's not unique at all to the Trump administration. They had the full agreement of the Biden administration. Both Republicans and Democrats for year after year have tried to exert some influence over how far Israel goes, and Biden had less success doing that than anyone who served in the White House. Trump has done what he could to clean up the mess. I think it's fair to argue that aid should have been cut off quicker, or we should have taken a firmer hand. Sure, I'm not going to say it was handled perfectly at all times, but This was clearly a difficult peace to engineer, given how obstinate both sides are. He says the negotiators were good on both sides. So it was long way of saying it was really difficult for us to get to this point, and I'm glad Trump pulled it off. Get him another one of those Nobel Peace Prizes,
six,
Lindsay.
According to you, he has like 6.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not the person that's not going to point out when something across the aisle needed to happen.
Yeah.
Find a moment to criticize President Trump in this moment. I think that America was ready to be detached from this entire situation, but more importantly, to stop seeing the hostages be held, to stop seeing Palestinians die. There was a sentiment that everybody did never want to see that go further. 2 years was long enough. I think President Trump deserves credit for being able to negotiate that. I also think people need to stop skipping over how deeply involved President Biden was with saying that Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu can move forward in whatever fashion they liked. So let's stop pretending like this is a Democrat-Republican thing. This was how we ran our country thing, and allowing ourselves to support Benjamin Netanyahu endlessly when in some cases it was going too far. While he was allowed to protect himself, the retaliation was a bit much.
Yeah.
And I know there's so many criticisms of that, speaking of how we responded to 9/11, and I understand that whole argument. But I still think when you see that number of Palestinian people that died, we have to figure out what the conversation is that Mehdi Hassan brought up. Now, when you have still extremist leaders that surround Benjamin Netanyahu, like Ben Gvir that we talked about, and when you talk about the stipulations that may or may not be involved in this, and how Benjamin Netanyahu has responded to some other conversations around ending this have been super critical. So what I want to know now is, what are the checks and balances involved to ensure that civilians will now be fed, Palestinians be fed, to ensure that all the bodies and people alive will be released properly, because Hamas did say that there's trouble getting through what is now a completely demolished Gazan territory to get these hostages there. And the timeline with they want them returned is kind of unrealistic when you can't even drive through the streets. So they're trying to figure that part out. I also want to make sure that Netanyahu doesn't go rogue, as he has multiple times in the past, with President Trump saying one thing and him deciding to do something else. Also, to make sure that the Palestinians are stabilized and able to rebuild a place that they have lived for decades in a way that's comfortable to the Palestinian people. And like you said, yes, not Hamas. I specifically want to understand about this board of peace that's being established, who will be on it, who will authorize that it's being followed through properly. And then also, I noticed that the deal avoids addressing at all the two-state solution, which ultimately, like we said, before our lifetimes, this territory has been in grief and fighting. And so what is the ultimate plan? Now, many historians and people who have way more knowledgeable on that territory and history of it than I am will say that a two-state solution is the most, I guess, long-term stable solution. However, I don't see that anywhere as part of this conversation in any way. And so I think that also has to be on the table. And while people may temporarily put a Band-Aid on what has been a dramatic and drawn-out long war, I think a long-term solution needs to be established before President Trump absolves himself and says, I'm turning this over to the Board of Peace and Benjamin Netanyahu to follow through. And that's what Hamas was saying in this note. Like,
well,
what's the plan?
On the Israeli side, if they violate the peace deal, or they start, Netanyahu goes rogue, to use your terminology, then we should cut off our aid to them. Like, sorry, you're the client state, we're the big state, you got to do what we say. If they go against Trump on this, cut off the aid. On the Palestinian side, Hamas just cannot have a role in the governance. It has to be the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, who, Hamas seized power from them when Israel pulled out of the Gaza Strip in the aughts, and they said, okay, govern yourselves, and then the people picked Hamas, and that was 20 years ago. That can't happen again, so it's still going to be governance by people the Israelis don't love, but not Hamas. That's what has to happen, and if that can be agreed to, great, two states. If not, then it's going to be something else. So that's where we'll be. And
the scariest part is the fact that President Trump joked about it being a tourist destination. I mean, there's real people that need to rebuild their livelihoods over there and not be a place
is a fine way to make a livelihood.
No, but not for a Trump Tower to go there. I think that's completely insensitive and was obnoxious to mention. I mean, he said he wants to go there. This is a great piece of land. No,
we're going to pay
demolished.
to rebuild it.
We shouldn't put Trump's logo all over there. We should rebuild it in a way that
put it. But if they want to purchase the land and build hotels. I mean, we want it to become an economically viable place for the people who live there.
We want Palestinians to decide how they would like to move forward and if they want major boom. And also, as somebody who...
If we're paying to rebuild it...
I disagree. I think that statement was, it's not charity. I think that we also paid for it to get demolished.
I wouldn't have done that either.
So what do we mean? We're paying. So we're here in this situation. We shouldn't just rebuild it in a way that America sees fit. We should talk to the people that are the new leadership of Palestinian people and talk about what they want to see there, not what America wants to see in a part of the country that we don't run.
I would hope they would want to see a thriving economy, and tourism can be.
Bobby, your hopes are not maybe what the Palestinian people want. I'm saying that's the first and foremost things that we should do.
I mean, I think
after
it's
all
naive
the
to say
suffering,
I don't think they want to live in rubble. I think they want.
Maybe they want to live in the homes that they had before it was demolished by funding that was given by the American government.
Of course, we have to build homes. We want it to be a place where people can live and work in safety and be prosperous.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how this deal pans out. A popular country singer is in hot water with the DHS for lyrics in his new song coming up, while Kristi Noem says the song is, quote, completely disrespectful to ICE.